So recently, Wuthering Waves released their version 1.3 update, which was the Black Shores. And it's been out for a couple of days now. It kind of coincided with one big event that a lot of us gacha players like to get involved in, which is the monthly gacha PvP, or you might know it as the monthly gacha revenue chart. But in this video, I'm not going to be going through the entire gacha revenue chart like a lot of other people do, and as I used to do, because it gets pretty boring. But today, we're just going to be talking about Wuthering Waves and how they did, and talking about why this might not be the end of the world, and people are just blowing this way out of proportion. As there's been a lot of negativity recently, especially surrounding the Wuthering Waves revenue, and just kind of discuss the pros and cons of Wuthering Waves, and what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong to actually get this kind of revenue. But before I get into this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy it, and also go to Games Hubs, use my code KAZA where you can get yourself 10% off a ton of cups and tubs. I definitely recommend going and checking out their Pixel Cup event, which they got on at the moment. That'll be down in the link below, and as I said, you can get 10% off if you use my code KAZA. But let's get back into the video. So yeah, as you probably saw at the beginning of the video, Wuthering Waves has not done very good in the revenue chart, with them making 6.75 million, which again, I don't think that's a terrible number. I think honestly, anything above around 5 million, 4 million-ish is enough to sustain the game for literally ever, and I definitely think that, you know, making this amount of money is still a very, very good thing. They're up here with games like Dragon Ball Legends, Blue Archive. I mean, these are some pretty big games, and I mean, even Reverse 1999 only made a few, 100,000 more, and that's still considered a very, very big game. Now, obviously, what hits hard for a lot of people is the fact that it made 13.5 million last time, but I think in my previous video where I talked about this overall revenue chart, and I was pretty much right in saying that, the revenue was going to fall a lot, and that's mainly due to the updates and the banners that we've had in the previous updates. Obviously, we've had Zheji, and we've also had Zhang Liao, who have kind of brought down the banner. Zhang Liao was free, so obviously not a lot of people were going to pull on him because, yeah, they got him free, there's no point. But again, the same with Zheji, she just wasn't that interesting to a lot of people. I found her quite interesting, to be fair. I didn't have the gems to pull for her, as I'd literally just got done pulling for Jinchi and Changli. So again, lots of people are very tied out from that, and we only got like the first couple of days of the Shorekeeper's revenue from the, update from the Black Shores. And in my video where I actually predicted a lot of the revenue, lots of people were very negative. That got like disliked to oblivion, and I think that's okay. Obviously, people can be very angry and be talking about the downsides of Wuthering Waves, but I'm not here to kind of like shit on it or anything like that. I don't think that Wuthering Waves is a terrible game or anything. I do want it to succeed, but I think it is important to talk about the downsides and why this might be. And I was mainly just explaining why, the revenue is like this and why we shouldn't panic at all. And honestly, I don't get why that got hated so much. I think I was just providing a very, very good insight on why the revenue is going down. But that's beyond me. Obviously, that just happens. Some people don't like them talking a bit bad about their game in any capacity. But let's get on to the good things. Obviously, in my previous video, I actually talked about the Wuthering Waves rating being a 4.9, which I think is a very good thing for Wuthering Waves and future updates, because obviously, although this revenue isn't looking too great, I definitely think that next update the revenue is actually going to go up, and that's kind of shown here in the rating. Obviously, this rating went up quite a bit whenever the Black Shores came out, so it seems like a lot of people are enjoying this update, and it might entice a lot of people to actually pull on the banners that are coming out. Obviously, the Shorekeeper and maybe some of the Jian banner. I don't know whenever Jian's coming out, but we've also got future updates like the Camellia banner, which is one of the most anticipated banners in Wuthering Waves, which I definitely think will bring up a lot of the revenue. And it'll just be very interesting to see how Wuthering Waves does from that, because I think that this 6.7 million is going to be like the lowest Wuthering Waves gets. I think maybe it will go down to like 5 million at some point in time, but I think that like we found our baseline for whenever there's not very many big updates out, not very many big events out for people to spend on. I think that, 6 million as a low point is actually pretty decent, and I think whenever we have our high points, we are going to go up there, somewhere in like the 20s, maybe 14 millions, whatever. It's going to do pretty decently, and I think that's great. And I think that, being at 6 million at a lowest is actually really good for sustaining the game, and I think that it's definitely more than enough revenue to actually keep the game going. But there's also another thing I wanted to talk about this gacha revenue chart, which was a lot of posts saying that this might not actually be, fully accurate. And I think that's been a discussion for the past couple of updates. I think that's become more common knowledge as new gacha revenue charts come out. People have started to begin to realize that this may not be entirely accurate. And this person talks about Wuthering Waves specifically, saying small update on sales posting and Shorekeeper numbers. As you can see here, Zheji made 144 million yen, which again is still pretty decent, I would say. And then we got Zhang Liao making 88 million yen. It was to be expected, he was a character that came out free, so not everyone's going to pull on him. And then we got the Shorekeeper just in 3 days making 103 million yen. And they did a little bit of calculations and stuff, because obviously these two numbers with the 88 million yen and 144 million yen, or after an entire patch or an entire month. As you can see, it says 0815 to 0907, I think that is. And for the Shorekeeper, this is only 3 days. So again, it's very exciting to see what this number actually becomes in the future and whether this is going to go up even more. Obviously, it could stagnate after the first couple of days, but I think, you know, over the course of a whole month, I think a lot of people will be pulling on this banner, and also people just catching up to the game. I don't think that, you know, although there is a massive boost at the start of a banner, I don't think that everyone's going to be pulling on it, meaning that we're going to see a steady incline in the revenue, and hopefully that will show on the gacha revenue chart too. But I do find it a little bit weird how the Shorekeeper actually made 103 million yen, but it's not really shown on the actual gacha revenue chart. It doesn't seem like it did pretty good. But again, I think that's just down to the scheduling of the updates of Wuthering Waves, and obviously Wuthering Waves aren't going to do anything about this because they don't care about a revenue chart or whatever. But it's just down to the scheduling of the banners, and obviously it does affect the numbers if you got like half a banner in, you know, a revenue month or whatever. And it obviously looks very, very bad for Wuthering Waves, but again, it's not the end of the world because they are still making a ton of money, and it's just more split out, and you just can't really see, you know, how much they actually are making. And not to mention that the monthly chart is kind of inaccurate whenever it comes to, you know, getting numbers from Sensor Tower. Obviously, we've known for a while that a lot of these numbers come from Sensor Tower, which is a website where they pretty much track a lot of data. And this person was pretty much saying that, like, some of it doesn't really match up to the Sensor Tower data if you actually go on Sensor Tower's, you know, website. And the same for this post here, which was on r/gachagaming, which I do think we have to be a little bit more careful with, just because, you know, it is r/gachagaming. So you don't want to just take every, like, bit of information that they say as, like, fact, because obviously this subreddit has been known to lie a lot, especially whenever it comes to really important details. But they're pretty much saying, is Sensor Tower data reliable, and can we analyze it better? And they pretty much go on this whole little things, and then they pretty much go into a lot of the information, talking about like different regions and stuff like that, and also talking about like the Sensor Tower website and how accurate the information actually is. And it turns out that maybe it might not be as accurate as a lot of people think it is. But again, I think this should just be treated as a bit of harmless fun. Obviously, this person says that in this post as well. This should just be a little bit of fun. I don't think anybody should take this too seriously. Now, I wish that it was a little bit more accurate in terms of revenue, because again, we have situations like this where, you know, some games look like they're doing worse than they actually are. Not even just Wuthering Waves, I mean any other game. Obviously, there's quite a lot of reds here, which may actually be in the green, and that might just be down to a bit of mishandled information or something like that. But again, we don't know. And obviously, there's been a lot of people online that have been taking this way too seriously whenever it comes to, you know, revenue being like, ah, your game sucks and stuff like that. That's not the case at all. As long as they're making, you know, around like above 4 million, even if they're making above 1 million, I think 1 million is even fine, especially if you're a smaller game. If you're making above that, you're doing pretty good anyways. And I don't think it's fair to call a game dead if it's making 6.7 million or anything like that. And obviously, we know some games have ups and down patches. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the future with this. Will people start to believe this, you know, a lot less? Because again, a lot of information is coming out about how unreliable that a lot of this data is. And obviously, me as a content creator, it does become a little bit confusing whenever, you know, there's a lot of unreliable information just being sent to us and everyone is covering it. So again, I would definitely keep you guys updated if anything happens with this in the future, and if the revenue is like kind of changed, or if they change how they're kind of like putting out the information. But so far, I would just say don't take a lot of this too seriously. I don't think it's the end of the world, especially for Wuthering Waves. They've got a ton of really good updates coming out in the future, and hopefully that will reflect in the revenue chart in the future. If it doesn't, then obviously there is something definitely going on with the information there. And yeah, I just say don't worry too much, and it's all going to be good. Yeah, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Do you think that Wuthering Waves making 6.7 million is a good thing, or do you think that it's a bad thing? I mean, honestly, I think it's a bit in between. I think it's a good thing to show us like what a bottom of the tier revenue is, but it's also a bad thing because it, you know, reflects pretty badly against a lot of these other games, especially whenever we're trying to compare it to like Xenozone Zero and stuff, who are making 32 million. 34 million, which is kind of insane. But again, hopefully we can catch up in the future with a lot of the future characters. And yeah, that's about all I got for this video. So if you did enjoy it, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And as I said, go over to Games Hubs, use my code KAZOE and get yourself 10% off a ton of cups and tubs. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.